Hi guys, today I wanted to showcase my Thorns Berserker Barbarian build. I'm going to be playing a clip of my tier 71 Alderwood Nightmare Dungeon Clear on hardcore in the background while I talk a little bit about the build. This isn't going to be an in-depth build guide or anything, but I'll probably cover most of what you'll want to know anyway. And so I made this build because I wanted to try out Thorns, and I didn't want to play any of the meta builds that everyone else is playing. Also, playing hardcore, I wanted something that would be tanky and something that could even provide me with some disconnect or crash protection. Since most mobs will die from hitting you with this build, unless you're pushing higher tier content, there's actually a pretty good chance that you might be able to survive a disconnect or a crash. So I tried to min-max the build the best I could and ended up being pretty happy with it. I think it's still fairly competitive and can clear fairly quickly. It's kind of difficult to tell exactly how much Thorns damage is being done since Thorns can't crit and the numbers show up as small white numbers. But here you can see my Thorns is hitting for about 1.4 to 1.7 million damage on the mobs. And I've seen it go as high as 4 million at times. This build scales very well with density because of the needle flare aspect, so the more mobs you have hitting you, the more times that procs and the more AoE damage you deal. The other two vital pieces of the build are the Razor Plate. Mine here gives 11,000 Thorns damage, so it's pretty mid. And then the Death Wish aspect, which this one, as you reach level 100, getting this aspect from the codex, it starts to scale really well. So I got this imprinted from the codex, and as you can see, it's actually more Thorns damage while berserking than the Razor Plate itself. And as for the rest of the build, I was mostly trying to stack as much strength as I could, because strength gives armor, and Thorns also scales with strength, as well as life. Again, just for tankiness, and Thorns does scale with life a little bit also. I'm also running Double Swing with Furious Double Swing for the sole purpose of extending the berserking duration. So with this build, I want to be permanently berserking because that gives us a ton of damage and a lot of damage reduction. So I had a lot of fun playing the build and trying to make it work, but as you can see here, it can be pretty clunky and very frustrating at times, especially when fighting monsters that don't hit you or don't hit you very often, such as this Aldrikin. As you can see, it's just taking me forever to kill him. So in this section I'm going to quickly go over my stats, skills, and gear, so feel free to pause the video if you need to. So we have 15k base Thorns damage, but while berserking and with Challenging Shout, it goes up to 34k. So for the skill tree, I went with Flay for Thorns damage and damage reduction, and the rest is pretty self-explanatory, pretty standard barb stuff, except for the double swing for the berserking, like I mentioned earlier. The rest were just stacking defenses, and of course getting anything that buffs our Thorns damage. For the Paragon board, I was kind of just winging it, so it could be optimized quite a bit more, but I went with Undaunted for the fortified damage and damage reduction, Territorial for the close damage and damage reduction, Exploit for vulnerable damage, we're stacking less of vulnerable damage, and then Imbiber for the damage while healthy, we're usually healthy, and then the damage while berserking and damage reduction from elites while berserking. For the gear, I'm mostly stacking things like strength, all stats, life, armor, damage reduction, vulnerable damage, close damage, pretty much anything defensive, and then ignoring crit and crit damage completely. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching.